Welcome, everyone. Thanks for tuning in to another episode of Topic UFO. On tonight's show, we're going to be turning away from the scientific viewpoint and focusing more on the spiritual, biblical viewpoint, I guess you would say. Our guest tonight is Reverend Michael J.S. Carter. I'm sure some of you may already know of him. He's been on several television shows, radio shows, different UFO conferences, etc. He's been on Coast to Coast AM on the radio, as well as the TV show that George Norrie does as well. We'll talk to him about that. I'd like to hear how that all goes down. He has a book out, I believe it's been out for about a year or so, entitled Alien Scriptures, Extraterrestrials in the Holy Bible. And I tell you, people that know me know that I tend to lean towards the more scientific explanation of UFOs and ETs, but after interviewing people like L.A. Marzulli and others, there's something to be said about some of this ancient biblical texts, and hopefully we'll talk about that some tonight. So without further ado, let's just bring him on, shall we? Reverend Michael, are you out there, sir?
Yes, I am, Rick. It's a pleasure to be here. Thanks for having me on your show.
Well, thank you for taking time out of your day. Just for the viewers' knowledge, we were scheduled to record this episode last week, but due to some issues on my end, we had to postpone. So I thank you for your flexibility and understanding. Michael, I was reading about you, and is it true that you are actually an experiencer yourself?
Yes, I am. Having ongoing experiences. The first experience I recall as an adult was on December 28th, 1989. I had come back from seeing the pyramids on the Yucatan Peninsula in Chichen Itza and Tulum, living in New York City at the time, and was there with my partner at the time, who later became my first wife. We were there enjoying a vacation, and I came back to New York, and a friend of mine had invited me to a party. I kind of didn't want to go, but I wanted to show off my tan. I mean, it was 85, 90 degrees there in New York at that, it was like 32 degrees, maybe even a little colder. So I went, and I stayed for maybe an hour and a half. I didn't have any beverages. I didn't have some hors d'oeuvres. I got there. I said hello, made an appearance, went back home, caught the subway back home. And that evening, I woke up. I don't recall having to get up and use the bathroom or anything like that. And when I woke up, there was a being on the edge of my bed.
Wow.
With my room was lit up. It was this being, there was a cobalt blue light behind this person, but my room was lit up. He wasn't, and I'm saying he, it could have been a she, the individual had on an aluminum foil-like jumpsuit. It was a chalk white color. It had the pear-shaped head, the stereotypical gray attire, look. It had the wraparound eyes. And it looked at me, and I looked at it. I thought I was going to have a heart attack. And I just did what any other, I pulled the covers up over my head and hoped it would go away. There, I said it. I am not a macho man. and my partner would not wake up. It just wouldn't wake up. I felt like there was a temperature change in the room, like I was outside. Now remember, we're on the 15th floor of the Excelsior Hotel on 81st Street between Columbus and Central Park West. So this is a tall building. And I heard this whoosh, whoosh, like this wind was blowing. And I felt like I was outside, and I put the covers down. There was no one in my room. It was quiet, eerily quiet. And this went on, as I write in the book, every full moon. Actually, every full and new moon for about 6 to 8 months. So it was happening about twice a month.
Well, let me ask you something here, because, one thing that caught my ear was you were saying that there was this cobalt blue light. And I've heard that description from other people, this cobalt blue.
Yeah, it was like a lapis. I mean, it was prominent.
Huh. And do you feel that there's just no possible way that you could have been dreaming, you could have been in some type of unconscious state, having some hallucinations or something? I mean, are you positive of what you saw?
I'm positive of what I saw. And the thing is, remember now, it's happening twice a month. Okay? And these beings are in the room. These are not these little light beings that people talk about or some ethereal kind of anthropomorphic image. I mean, these beings have touched me. These are, I just call them off-world intelligences. And there wasn't, and now prior to this, I must say this, Rick, prior to this, you must know, I'm not a Trekkie. I don't watch Star Trek. I don't watch Star Wars. And I remember as a kid, and growing up in Baltimore, someone asking me, "You don't believe in life on other planets?" And I said, "No." And I remember the look on their face. I was downtown on Howard Street in Baltimore. And I said, "No." And I saw this look come over them. And they were like, "Well, why don't you?" And you know what my answer was? Because it's not in the Bible. Because I grew up in African-American church tradition, Baptist tradition, where the Bible said what it meant and it meant what it said.
Well, I tell you,
there was no room in my paradigm for this.
Right. And I find it highly unusual that I'm talking to somebody such as yourself who is a reverend.
Yes.
And is talking about ET visitations. That you don't hear that a lot.
No, you don't.
And you and I spoke a couple of weeks ago, and we were discussing the fact, or asking the question, I guess, why so many people from the religious side of the house see the whole UFO ET thing as this negative, basically demonic, type of situation. But in your case, that's not true, right?
It's not true. The visitations that I've had, I feel, and I don't want to, there are people who have had, sperm taken, rectal probes, I mean, the whole 9 yards. And I want to acknowledge that. I'm not saying that that's not true. But the word I try to get out there is that's not all there is. There are people like myself who have felt, I don't use the word abducted. I don't feel like I was abducted. I feel like my spiritual growth was accelerated in many ways. And I just want to give it some balance to the story, because we as human beings, we tend to paint with a broad brush, and we kind of lump everything into one group. It's easier to understand that way. Now, you mentioned Brother Marzulli. When I started doing on the lecture circuit, I wasn't mentioning my own experience. So we're talking 15, 20 years ago. And the religious community was not even entertaining this.
Right.
Now we do have Brother Marzulli. We have other more, I would say, more evangelical or fundamentalistic or more Orthodox Christians who at least now they're acknowledging it, but now they're saying it's all demonic. But for me, it may be low-hanging fruit, but at least that's it. We're talking about it now.
Right.
You know, we don't have to be on the same side. We don't have to think alike to love alike, but at least there are other religious people tossing their hat in the ring and talking about this.
And like you said, people their viewpoints tend to reflect their surroundings, their upbringing. So in your case, you were brought up in a highly religious family, I take it.
Yes. Jesus was the way, the truth, and the light, and my parents still believe that, and they're good people. I don't have the same theology as they do. I've kind of had to find my own way, but I'm glad they gave me some type of upbringing.
Right.
I'm glad of that, and I'm trying to do that. We're trying to do that with my daughter as well, and then she can make her own decisions, but she can see what's on the table. But I feel that there's a word called Sankofa. It's a Ghanaian word, an Akan word, and it means looking back in order to move forward. And I feel that, at least from the religious side of the aisle, I'm not a very nuts and bolts type of person. I mean, I love it, talking about back engineering and all this kind of stuff. But my head is more from the spiritual or consciousness transformational aspect of the phenomenon. And so I'm into, how does this affect the way I live my life with other human beings, knowing that there are off-world intelligences? How does that affect the way I walk through the world? Does it make me more loving? Does it make me more fearful? Does it make me, do I keep my head in this? Those types of things. And for me, because I do a lot of diversity work, as well, along with my ministry, to me, this is an extension of that, because the universe is teeming with life. I've had at least 3 different races wind up in my bedroom in the evenings. And so to me, this is an extension of that work. And so for human beings on planet Earth, we have to mature, and we have to realize now that the stakes are high. We can destroy ourselves several times over. And not only that, but there are other intelligences out there. So we can barely get along with each other.
Exactly.
Now the stakes are higher.
Well, let me ask you, when you had these experiences, you saw these entities, do you feel like they must have some type of human qualities? Do you consider them, would you call them humans from another place, or should they not be even referred to as human in any way?
I think they can be. Now, when I first started being visited, I saw what we call grays, but they were chalk white to me. And then we all know now there's several species of grays. Mm-hmm. And some of them were very short. One was very tall. He had a cape on when he came in my room, and was very tall. I've seen reptilians. They're humanoid in the fact, well, let's say anthropomorphic. They have 2 arms, 2 legs, maybe not the same amount of digits, fingers, but they have 2 arms, 2 legs, a torso, and a head, and feet. And I've seen what we would probably call more Nordic looking, tall individuals. They had, what the monks' robe would be, maybe during the Crusades, with the hood and the brown robe, those kind. So those are 3 races right there. And I call them humanoids. Like, I refer to them as individuals. I don't call them aliens. They're star people. Only because it's not about being politically correct. It's about being personally conscious. And our words are very powerful. And we use our words to to separate. They're the other. They're the aliens. Well, of course, we do this now with immigration. They're the illegal aliens. That's just not a nice. It's just not the way you want to address another human being or just another living being. Yes. And so that's where I'm coming from along those lines. I want to not marginalize any more than we already do.
So why do you think this has happened to you? Why are you being visited? And for instance, I am not. What is it that causes certain people to be visited?
That I don't know on any concrete level. I mean, I remember, when I was regressed, the late Bud Hopkins had regressed me. We knew each other in New York and worked together. Dr. Gene Mundy, another wonderful individual. They both have passed away and gone on. I realized that I was seeing these beings as a child, but I had no way to articulate it. One day I went to a very talented psychic, and I did not mention this at all. As a matter of fact, they brought it up. They brought up that I had, as they called it, an outer space connection. This is when I was very closeted about it. And I said, initially, I lied. I said, I have no idea what you're talking about. But that's how shut down I was. And they just proceeded to tell me. And they said, Michael, you have connections with these beings from other lifetimes. And you have made contracts, was the word they used, for this lifetime, because there's a message that needs to get out. And the message that I have been giving, Rick, it has been something I really believe. I think they've accelerated and make me less fearful. Is that at least the beings that are visiting me, not all, because just like people, we find more malevolent people, more benevolent people. So we're not all saying that all of them want to come here and sing Kumbaya. However, that in order for human beings to go to the next step of evolution, we have to get over our fear of the other. We fight too much. We are too much in a fear mode. This keeps our vibration at a lower level. And so we get technology and we develop weapons, we develop drones, we develop smart bombs. We've done this all through our civilization on this planet. Right. And their message to me is to pass on that there's nothing to fear from them. But the biggest obstacle that they've had to overcome has been human fear of the other and the violence. These are not new messages. The sages of the ages have been telling us this since the beginning of time. It's just that the stakes are higher now because of the technology. And you know this, the sightings increased after we split the atom.
Right.
And
they seem to anyway.
They're hovering around our missile silos and showing us that they can have their own will about these things. But, we split the atom, and then we split the atom over 2 civilian cities. This is not what civilized people do. And of course, whatever we do to ourselves, especially from a nuclear standpoint, reverberates out into the cosmos. So we truly are all connected.
Well, what do you think about the possibility that we humans here on Earth were actually seeded by some other intelligence? Perhaps these people that have visited you, one of them anyway, maybe they were the ones that got human going here on Earth.
I agree. And my next book, which I'm trying to put together at least mentally, it's going to be more about that. That, for me, there is a power greater than me. I don't get caught up whether it's God or non-God or Allah or the Holy Spirit, whatever you want to call it. But to our ancestors, These beings were godlike because of the technology.
Right, right.
And that's now see, but we have technology, but we don't have the spiritual wisdom and maturity to handle it, which is why we can destroy ourselves, why we're destroying the planet with the fracking and, of course, the ozone and these kinds of things. But if we look in Genesis 6, talking about the sons of God met the daughters of men and they married them and they created these giants. And you read the book of Enoch, they're talking about these beings called the Watchers, who even Stevie Wonder can see that we're talking about extraterrestrial life. We're talking about off-world intelligences. Angel meant messenger in Greek.
Right.
It's angelos. It doesn't mean people had wings. They may have, but our ancestors drew wings on these people to let us know that they flew. And because of the technology, they were worshipped. But we worship technology today in a different way, but we do worship it.
Yeah.
And so, yes, I believe we were seeded by other these off-world intelligences. Now, that is not to say that there is no creator. Again, listen, if people don't believe in a creator, and when I use that word, I don't even know what I'm really saying, but there is an intelligence behind these star visitors that they even, in the literature, that they may even acknowledge, but not in the anthropomorphic, there's a big man or woman up in the sky, not in that way.
That
More
the invisible magic man.
as an energy, as an energy, as an intelligence.
Right, right.
That doesn't have matter. And words get in the way, but words are all we have. But the danger is any words we use to describe a God is exactly what that God is not, because the finite can never fully comprehend the infinite. And that's where we get into these religious wars, and my God's better than yours, and it's Allah, and no, it's Jesus, and no, it's God, and no. This is where we are today.
Yeah. Don't even get me started on organized religion.
Yes. or disorganized.
Disorganized religion, right. Well, listen, let's talk a little bit specifically about your book that is out, Alien Scriptures, Extraterrestrials in the Holy Bible. Now, you just touched on one thing, where you were saying that, early man could have seen certain things and took it for something else, right?
Yeah.
Is that what this book is about? Can you give us an overview of what this book is about?
Yeah, I can. The book is about the possibility, I could always be wrong, I don't think I am on this point, that the Koran, what we call the New Testament and the Old Testament, were written from the viewpoint of people who had contact with off-world intelligences and mistook them for gods. And that along the way, we have mistaken the messenger for the message. And so what I'm saying is no, it's not that the Bible's worthless or any of the Upanishads or all. No, they're not worthless, but we need to glean that wisdom that makes sense to us today in order to help not only bring more harmony on the planet, but to each other. As I say in the book that I believe Jesus is a hybrid. Okay, fine. Whether he is or he isn't, I think I make the case that he is. But the point is whether or not he is not the issue. The issue is he's telling humanity, you got to bring your A game. And the game is about not just loving other Jews. The A game is loving other people, period. Your enemies, people who use you. Okay, and what we've done is we've gotten the message. The messenger is more important than the message. And I think that goes whether we're talking about Muhammad, who, if you read the Quran, Allah is the Lord of the worlds, plural. So it's already acknowledged that there are other worlds. We talk about the justice, the social justice of the 8th century Hebrew prophets, Jeremiah, Amos, Zechariah. They were talking about how do we bring love and justice to humanity. At that time, humanity only consisted of their tribe, which was the early Hebrews. But even, I'm looking now at Isaiah 40, verse 22. The verse reads, "It is he who sits above the circle of the earth, and its inhabitants are like grasshoppers." Now, how did someone writing 5,000 years ago know that the earth was a sphere, that it was a circle? I was taught that the world was flat until Columbus discovered otherwise. But here we have someone writing, Isaiah chapter 40, that it is he who sits above the circle of the earth and its inhabitants are like grasshoppers. That sounds like a view from above.
I would agree.
If we look at the book of Job, chapter 9, verse 9, the Lord, who I'm saying is an astronaut, says to Job, "Who made Orion and the Pleiades?" What does Job know from the Pleiades? What does he know about Orion? But here we have this being saying, "Who made that, Job? You didn't make it. You didn't make it." And so the clues are there. Job again, chapter 38. Again, the Lord says, and again, the Lord is, for me, the captain of a ship or what have you. "Can you tie cords to the Pleiades? Can you undo the reins of Orion?" I don't know what other things, I don't know how else to think about verses like that written 5,000-6,000 years ago.
So do you think then that if some type of extraterrestrial race was responsible for starting humans here on Earth, they must have come down and visited us at some point way back then. And those visitations spawned the Bible, they spawned the Koran, perhaps a lot of other religions.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, if we look at Judaism,
don't you think they would have been more careful to make sure that we got the one single message so that we didn't have all these interpretations going out throughout humanity?
No, and I think that's the problem with humanity. We expect other people to clean up our messes. They can't control us. They gave us free will. It's not them that's caused all the confusion. It's human beings who say, "My God is better than your God."
Yep.
Or "My God is this and your God isn't." That has nothing. It's like blaming God if a child runs out here in the middle of the street and gets hit by a car. That's not a God's fault.
Right, and I'm sure some humans would have changed the story just to change it to make themselves, seem better or have a better story.
It's very human. It's what is going on. And remember, these teachings are coming to an ignorant people who threw stones at you until you were dead, people who would nail you to pieces of wood, people who would behead you. We're talking about a very tribal people. Heaven forbid we were a woman in those days. And so remember the 10 Commandments or the 10 suggestions or what, there were originally 613 of them, but we got it down to 10. But remember, those 10 were only, you did not murder another Hebrew person. You did not covet another Hebrew person's goods. You did not commit adultery with the wife. Those were only for the Hebrew people. Because remember, we go into the land of milk and honey, and they kill all the men, women, and children, because this land is given to them by Yahweh, who I say is an astronaut. So when Jesus comes along several thousand years later, he says, wait a minute, we're going to take, you don't have to throw the old rules away, the law of Moses away, but I'm adding a new message to it. You love your neighbor, no matter who they are. Yeah. And that changed the game. I'm specifically talking about the Judeo Christian, because these teachings are off-world teachings, and they are very difficult to do, which is why we're in the mess that we're in today. But these teachings were to teach us how to be in relationship with one another.
Do you think that? Well, I believe you may have seen the latest comment from NASA stating
Yes.
that they plan on being able to prove life exists elsewhere within the next 20 years. What do you think about these entities making themselves known publicly, worldwide? Do you think that'll ever happen?
It is happening.
Well, it's happened. It's happened to a select few.
Well, no. Well. I'm not. No, I would disagree. Whether we can go on Facebook, we can go on social media. Some of these things are fake, obviously. Some of these sightings are not. I mean, disclosure's happening right now. What's happening is in the UFO community, in my humble opinion, is that we're waiting for someone else to affirm and confirm what we already know. I am so far past. Do they exist? Do they not exist? Mm-hmm. Of course they exist. People take pictures of ships. People like me are coming forward talking about what's been going on. We have the Vatican. We have the Pope saying a couple months ago that it's okay, that this does not change any of the Catholic theology. And in fact, we could even baptize extraterrestrials. Peru just releases some of their UFO information. Of course, the Netherlands, Britain, France, New Zealand. It's happening right now. But we're waiting for Caesar, whether it's Obama, maybe it'll be Clinton, it'll be Caesar, who knows? But we're waiting for Caesar to come out on the White House lawn and say, guess what, folks? And that may have to happen one day if there's a sighting that they can't explain away. But disclosure's happening as we speak. We're just waiting for it to happen in a certain way. When the Vatican comes out and says that extraterrestrial life is real and that it would have no major influence on their theology, when we have countries around the world releasing their UFO files and art, I mean, what more do we want? Yeah. It's happening right in front of us.
Well, I think it's easier for people such as yourself and myself and people that watch shows like this because they are open-minded. They have done some investigation. But, there are a lot of people in this world that when you bring up the word UFO or the word extraterrestrial, they look at you like, you're one screw loose. And I think that it will take something like that, landing on the White House lawn to really enlighten the total world population. But if they're going to come, if they were to come here and they were to land and they were to greet us and they had the answer as to why are we here? What is the purpose of human life, et cetera, and they were to give us that answer, whatever that answer may be. Don't you think that it is going to impact a lot of these different belief systems throughout the world? A lot of these religions are going to be impacted because what they've believed for hundreds and thousands of years turns out not to be true?
I think that it will affect a lot. I think it will affect Western culture a little more. Eastern culture, Hinduism, Buddhism, they seem to have a multiplicity of deities, if you will, in their cosmology. Mm-hmm. I don't think that it will disrupt Western culture too much as long as the teachings that have been about cooperation, about love, and not some let's all sing kumbaya, but as we extend ourselves for the good of each other and the planet, that's always been the message one way or the other. And once people can get past the noise, which is what I try to do, because whether Jesus, like I said, was a hybrid or not, whether they came to different ETs came and seated here and there and whatever. The point is that how do we live together on this planet? Can we live together? That is the core message, whether it was from Dr. King, whether it's from Mother Teresa, whether it's from Joan of Arc, whether it's from any of the sages of the ages. That is the core message. And if we can keep our eye and our hearts open to that, we will fare well.
We'll be able to accept the messaging and produce something positive out of it.
And that's what I believe, because I don't think that they're, at least the spiritually advanced ones, they're not going to tell you what life means for you, because that's part of being a human being. That's part of the journey. That's part of free will. We get to decide that.
But there must be a reason why we're here on this planet. There has to be a reason.
Well, but I'm saying, but that reason may be different for everybody. I say we're here to grow, to evolve, and to learn to love, and to eventually go back to our source. For someone else, it may not be. I go back to Kierkegaard. Kierkegaard says, life is not a problem to be solved. It's a mystery to be lived. And we can be so much in our head trying to figure, how many people do you know? They're trying to figure life out. I got to figure this out. And life is passing them by.
Yep, you're looking at one right here, Michael.
Yeah, you know what I mean? I mean, it's okay not to know. I love the Lakota. They call the Great Spirit Wankatonkin, means the great mystery. And that means that they are comfortable with living with mystery. Not that you don't seek. I'm not saying you don't. But remember, the whole thing about seeking is to find something. And no one's all going to get it this lifetime or at one time. But if you can find something that makes Rick get up in the morning, there it is. That may be different for me. You said you're very into the scientific nuts and bolts.
Right.
Of this phenomenon.
Right.
Okay, for many people, that's it. For me, I'm not. Right. But we all have a piece of the puzzle.
That I will agree on.
Yes.
I will agree on.
We all have a piece of the puzzle.
I think the answer is going to lie somewhere in between, where all of these different lines intersect, where all these
that's
different...
what Buddha says, right? Buddha says that we take the middle path.
Yep. I can go along with that.
Middle path.
Well, listen, Michael, we've hit the end of the show, but I must say it was a very interesting conversation. Where can people get your book? Again, Alien Scriptures, Extraterrestrials in the Holy Bible by Reverend Michael J.S. Carter. Where can they pick this book up? They can go to
Amazon.com. They can get it at Barnes & Nobles. They can go to my website, which is michaeljscarter.com. The Kindle version is $4.99. Kindle and Nook version $4.99. The paperback is $9.49. It's very reasonable, and they can pick up the book at those venues.
Excellent. Well, listen. Again, thank you for being on the show tonight. It raises even more questions. Like yes. We need more questions when it comes to ufology and extraterrestrials. But hey, that's what this show is about. Asking these questions and getting different people's inputs and thoughts. And
it's my pleasure to be on your show, Rick. And I'll just leave you with this. Sometimes the questions are more important than the answers.
All right. I'll take that.
Yeah.
All right. Well, listen, you have a fantastic rest of the evening, and
you too, brother.
We will talk to you soon.
Okay. Blessings to you.
Good night, Michael. Bye-bye.
Answer is